ओके, सो हमारा टॉपिक है ओवर, अंडर एंड ऑप्टिमम पॉपुलेशन। पहले भी बताया, these concepts reflect the economic underpinnings in demographic processes. In simple words, these are the processes which reflect the relationship between the population size and resource size. इस टर्म का सिंपली यही मतलब है, economic underpinnings in demographic processes. It simply refers to, or it simply means that these processes are essentially telling us about the relationship between population and resource base. They tell the relationship between population and resources and thus convey about the quality of life and standards of living of a society. These are dynamic concepts, and a society can become optimum, populated, underpopulated, or overpopulated, or population society with the change in the population resource ratio. So it is simply nothing but a way of understanding the population resource ratio. If we talk about the concept of overpopulation, in this case the population growth rate outpaces the rate of resource growth. So when this situation arrives, we call this situation as the situation of overpopulation. Thus the highest possible living standards are not achieved, cannot be achieved. The living standards remain low. It can result if the population growth rate is very high, that is one situation, very high, or the technological innovation for the resource development is at a lower rate. And both of the conditions together at a time can create extreme overpopulation. So that is what is simply we mean by overpopulation. Class में भी बताया था that when the population base is so large or population growth is so fast that technological development is unable to keep pace with that. As a result, the resource development lags. This situation is the situation of overpopulation. Very clearly, the situation of overpopulation would be reflected or can be measured by several factors like poverty, unemployment, illiteracy, frequent famines. All such type of problems would be very commonly taking place in these areas. Number of areas of overpopulation can be talked about, like the case of South Asia, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, part of Punjab. Number of places, they are basically what? They are overpopulated. East Asia, that includes China, Han China more specifically, because rest of the China is what? Underpopulated. Tibet you talk about, Xinjiang you talk about, all these are underpopulated. The Han China is overpopulated. Several countries of Southeast Asia including Myanmar, Indonesia, Thailand, these are also overpopulated. In Africa, there are two countries which can be categorized as overpopulated, Egypt and Nigeria. Rest of the countries of Africa will see they are underpopulated. So these are the examples of overpopulation. Underpopulation की बात करें, there are two scenarios of underpopulation. In the first scenario, available resources can support much larger population without any reduction in standard of life. ठीक है? So they can support much larger population without, very keyword important is, without any reduction in the standard of living. You take the case of Russia, for example. Can I say Russia has immense resources? Even if number of people increase, even if Russia suppose tomorrow decides and imports 20 million people, these people will do what? They would more work. These people would get to exploit the resources more. And in fact, it is something which would ensure that Russia's economy would grow. Right now Russia is facing economic crisis, economic problem. There are less number of people to do many types of works. There are huge scopes, potentials, but they are unable to ultimately access those potentials. So what we find that even if number of people increase, the standard of living is not going to go down. Such a situation is the situation of underpopulation. So this is one aspect. So even if the number of population increase, standard of living will not decline. That is, the actual number of people is low, and there is high technology for resource development is not a problem. Thus resource development is not a problem. And example is Russia. That is one type. So this type of underpopulated areas are which type? These are Arctic type of underpopulated areas. We can simply call them as the Arctic type of underpopulated areas. You see the case of Scandinavia. So one of my friends is living there in Oslo, and he told me that it is something like sometimes when you go outside, it would be very, very difficult that you will find people. कोई मिलेगा ही नहीं. There are literally, when first time he was going from airport to the city, he said that nobody was there in the roadside. कोई रास्ते में मिला ही नहीं. So much these are underpopulated areas. So many less people are living. So that is one type of underpopulated areas. अभी देखेंगे. In the second scenario, full development of resources has not taken place due to constraints of population and poor technology, leading to comparatively lower standards of living despite the scope for resource development. So either there are less number of people to do work. Also, second thing here is the technology is less developed, as a result of which the resource development has not been very fast. So this is another situation of underpopulation. If we look into this situation of underpopulation, areas of sub-Saharan Africa, South America, these are areas which are underpopulated. Here there is huge resource base, but not enough people to develop all the resources. So it is mainly result of poor technological development along with comparatively lower population. So best example is South America, Brazil, Argentina, all majority of the countries, and Africa is another example. Here similar symptoms, very important thing is symptoms can be visible, like the case of overpopulated, like poverty, unemployment, lower standards of living. All these are very, very common here also. याद है हमने इसके बारे में बात भी किया है, that Neo-Malthusian asserted that these problems of Africa are result of the overpopulation or positive checks. But what we have seen, that positive checks are applicable when there is overpopulation, but Africa represents a situation of underpopulation. So the assertions made by the Neo-Malthusians we saw was not correct. It was faulty. So that is the case. Then there is optimum population. Optimum population has been defined as the size of population enabling per capita output of maximum orders, accompanied by highest possible living standards of living under a given set of economic and technological conditions. Therefore, optimum population lies between two extremes, that is overpopulation and underpopulation. Although the size of optimum population is not sacrosanct, there is no fix that what is the size. It would be simply ratio of the population. How we will measure that an area has optimum population? कैसे पता कर सकते हैं? ओके, एक टास्क करते हैं. Classify the states of India under the categories of over, under and optimum population. करो इसे फटाफट. So we are saying classify. तो classification में can I say first thing I will be taking is the standard of living, and standard of living लेकर के first thing what we'll do, like for example per capita income can be one of the standards of living. So can I say on the basis of this I can classify the areas into where it is highest, these would be classified as optimum populated areas. Where if you talk about the standard of living is lowest, they can be either underpopulated or they can be overpopulated. दोनों चीजें हो सकती हैं. But here I have to find out कि which of them, how to classify further them. So फिर क्या हम criteria ले सकते हैं? Can I say I can take the criteria of population density. जिन एरियाज में लो पर कैपिटा इनकम है वहां पर फिर मैं सेकंड एस्पेक्ट चेक करूंगा and I will check what is the population density. So can I say those areas having high population density, we'll call them as overpopulated, and those areas having low population density, we'll call them as underpopulated areas. ठीक है, तो इस तरह से we can simply classify. That is basically what we are trying to understand here. Like for example इसमें होगा, okay, अभी इंडिया में देखते हैं हम क्लासिफाई करते हैं. So that is basically the case of over, under and optimum population. And optimum population में the Western Europe, Anglo America, Australia, Japan, where highest standards of living are present. This one of the attempts was made by Edward Ackerman to talk about these population resource regions of the world. ठीक है? And Ackerman tried to classify these population resource regions. He used three factors to classify them. One is population, other is resource, and the third one is technology. And here we are talking about population size, resources, and the factor of technology. And he classified the world into 5 categories. One is Egyptian type. And here, what is the case of Egyptian type? Egyptian type has very high population base, big population base. And big population base, but what is the size of resources? It is lesser, low size of resources. Technology, it is also low. अगर ये सभी चीजें लो हैं and population बड़ा है तो what will happen? This is which type? It is overpopulated. So this displays the situation of overpopulation. Second is Brazilian type. Brazilian type population is smaller. Resource base is high. Technology, however, is underdeveloped. As a result of which we will classify this area as what? Underpopulated area. अभी देखा था हमने. It would be classified as underpopulated. Third category is Arctic type. Population is small. Resources are higher. Technology is also low. This area would also be classified as underpopulated. अभी देखा था हमने Russia and the Arctic type population. It is this kind of situation. Then there is American type. American type is population is higher, enough size. It is not very high, but it is enough. If you talk about resource base is very high, technology is very high. As a result of which there is a situation of optimum population. One of the highest standards of living are seen in this area. Similarly, there is European type. Population is high population. Resource base is lower, but there is one factor which is technology, which is compensating for the low resource base. As a result of which, here also can I say we find the highest living standards. So it is also what? It is the case of optimum population. But we can say that it is almost on the boundary of overpopulation. If population increases further, suppose, because optimum population हमने क्या बोला था? It is not sacrosanct. It can change. These are dynamic situations. If an area experiences very high population growth in a very short period of time, suppose lots of migrants swam into Europe, can I say it can soon become overpopulated? Or suppose Europe's population growth becomes negative entire Europe. After some decades, can I say it can also become underpopulated? Okay? So again, this is not fixed. Europe situation can change anytime. It can become overpopulated. So that is the case of European type. So this is the classifications which have been done by Ackerman. Now ये सब optimum overpopulation के concepts हैं. Can I say अगर मुझे इस पे लिखना हुआ, I know that even Malthus was talking about the situation of over, under and optimum population. So for Malthus, what was the situation of overpopulation and underpopulation? He was just relating population size was related with the resource size. He was trying to find out relationship between them, and this was giving rise to the, in fact ये arrow मैं हटा देता हूँ. He was trying to do what? He was trying to just find out a relationship between population and resource, and on the basis of that he was qualifying an area as overpopulated, underpopulated or optimum populated. Malthus का idea हमने देखा है. This was the subsistence growth. This was the population growth. अगर याद हो तो हमने बात किया था. This is the point O, and point O was which point? Optimum population point. Here lied the case of under population. Beyond O would develop over population. ठीक है. So that is the basic case of idea of Malthus. क्या मैं इसको criticize कर सकता हूँ? Malthus' view that population and size and resource size are interlinked is not wrong, but can I say it is incomplete? Because he fails to take into account the factor of technology and affluence. दोनों चीजों को account में नहीं लेता है. ठीक है. So you can understand, when I was a student, घर से 15,000 रुपये आते थे, उसमें भी काम चल जाता था, उसमें भी बहुत एंजॉय भी कर लेता था, पढ़ भी लेता था, सब कुछ हो जाता था. अब इतने कमाता हूँ, वो भी कम पढ़ते हैं. What I am just trying to say, your affluence levels are a very important factor which would determine that whether it is a situation of overpopulation, underpopulation or optimum population. If in an area a person is consuming a lot, if in an area a person, people have, like for example, पहले भी मैंने बात किया, if in Western world you don't have access to your own room, again it is considered as what? It is considered as a low standard of living. In fact, in these areas you'll be finding घर में रहने वाले 2 लोग हैं, and घर कितना बड़ा है? 10 कमरे, 12 कमरे. ठीक है. It is like कि रोज रात में डर जाते होंगे, इतना बड़ा घर है, but still it is what? the level of affluence that people have. So again, it is your level of affluence which also affects whether it would be underpopulated, overpopulated, or optimum populated. There can be concepts based on sharing. Why you always need to have a private ownership to property? This concept of private ownership to property is one of the concepts which has been given to the world by the West. West always had better resource base compared to the population. If you look into the ancient civilizations like India, where they developed, the river valleys where the population density was low, people were always more familiar to the concept of sharing of the resources, more optimum conservation, sustainable consumption of the resources. But this materialistic culture which has come from the West, now it has permeated into even these societies as well. So things have changed. That is what हमने देखा है, Marx talks about, that affluence is a very important factor, consumption is a very important factor which would be determinative of whether it is underpopulated, overpopulated or optimum populated. Simple सी बात है. इसका भी we are talking about standards of living. Can I say ultimate aim is what? What is the ultimate aim? Can I say ultimate aim is the case of social well-being and quality of life? Social well-being, quality of life, हमने देखा है, it depends upon which factors? Is it only income and material? No. Income and material is essentially means to an end. Ultimately, what you have to do, you have to become happy. You have to feel free. अब मेरी सिचुएशन देखो. I am doing my best to complete these classes in time. 15 मार्च का डेट दिया गया था तुम लोगों को, 10 मार्च को खत्म कर दूंगा, 5 दिन पहले. ठीक है, लेकिन गालियां कितनी पड़ती हैं मुझे रोज. ठीक है, आई एम नॉट फ्री, नो मैटर हाउ आई टीच, कितनी भी मेहनत कर लूं, आई एम नॉट फ्री. सो मेरा क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ कितना बुरा है. It is like this. So that is what we are here talking about. It doesn't mean that how much material you have. It is the end product. It is how happy you are, how free you are, which would matter. And it is not necessary that it requires private ownership. It can also be there with the sharing. Concept of sharing. So when we are talking about this idea of over, under and optimum population, हमने इसके बारे में इतनी बार बात किया, I don't need to further elaborate that there is basically what? There is first idea is the idea of technology. Technology. And technology की बात करें, although population is growing like this, but can I say हमने ये भी देखा है that technological growth happens in spurts. There are innovations and these innovations lead to multiplication in the resource base. They cause multiplication in the resource base. Like for example, हम अगर यहाँ पर देखें तो there was, हमने पहले भी बात किया है, agricultural revolution. There was the case of industrial revolution. There was the case of green revolution. And today we are on the verge of biotechnology revolution. biotechnology revolution. So technology is able to take case of this problem. Take the case of Africa. अगर हम अफ्रीका की बात करें, then Africa is one area which has low standard of living. Can we say that? One of the basic aspect of low standard of living is, can I say, it is related with lower technological development. You take the case of food insecurity. Food insecurity of Africa. So if we look into the food insecurity of Africa, can I say it is primarily a function of the fact that the crops which are the major crops of Africa, in those crops the technological development has not taken place. Green revolution technology was successful in cereals like maize, rice, wheat. Can I say all of these crops are not important crop of Africa? कह सकते हैं? अफ्रीका में कौन से क्रॉप्स होते हैं? अफ्रीका has other type of crops like there is tapioca, like for example if you talk about there is cocoa. Different type of crops are grown in Africa rather than these crops. In those crops there was no green revolution. As a result of which what has happened? Africa's productivity, agricultural productivity has remained low. That is the reason why we find that there is problem. Take the case of India. Can I say India में भी यही problem थी? After independence we had to import food under PL 40 program. But can I say as soon as we achieved the technological breakthrough, as soon as we achieved the green revolution success, we became self-sufficient in food? हुआ कि नहीं हुआ? ठीक है, we became self-sufficient in food. So technological viewpoint says that you cannot think of the population and resources without the factor of technology. Because resource should not be taken as static. Resource is something which is created, something which is made. It is man-made, it is human-made. And what is the factor which determines that it would be human-made? It is the factor of technology. If you are able to develop technology, you can think it of as a resource. You can use it as a resource. You can develop the resource. So many things are there. Like in India, we have huge deposits of methane hydrates in our continental shelves. Huge deposits of methane hydrates. Unfortunately, right now we don't have the technology to exploit that. If we can develop the technology to exploit that, in the medium term, India will have no problem of energy insecurity. It will have no energy crisis in the medium term. And in the long term, we are sure that we'll be able to develop the renewable energy security. और take the case of, वो भी छोड़ दो, मीथेन हाइड्रेट्स में भी climate की problem हो सकती है. Can I say that I was driving back, and while I was driving back, one thing came to my mind कि ये जो सड़कें हैं, इतना सारा एरिया था, it was like totally open. Can there be something like when we are making these roads also? Can we make roads in such a manner where there is solar panels and again there is also a road. Over that there is a kind of road. Something like that. whatever मेरे दिमाग में है. Or on the sides of the road, throughout. Can you install solar panels? Yes, you can. That is easy. Then why we are not doing? Again, we don't have the necessary technology. And the government is so much stupid. India can develop rare earth elements. What is the main problem? Why we are unable to develop that? Because we don't have the rare earth elements. Rare earth elements is one of the most abundantly available minerals. The problem is their distribution is not concentrated. China was able to develop rare earth minerals because it has the advantage of labor. It is lots of labor intensive activity, rare earth elements. That is why China was able to produce it very cheaply, and China became a monopoly supplier of rare earth elements. Even India earlier used to develop rare earth elements, but again, we have so much of monazite sand, so many places you will find that in India rare earth elements can be developed. But government के पास कोई idea नहीं है कि क्या करना है. This renewable energy sector is the sector where maximum India can make lots of profits. It can become a leader. It has that manpower. It has that demographic dividend. Unfortunately, it is like this. And because of that, we are unable to enter in the manufacturing sector of these solar panels, etc. We are not able to manufacture them. So where the problem lies? The problem lies in the factor of technology. Suppose कल को गवर्नमेंट डिसाइड करता है कि ये हमारा टारगेट होगा. दो चीजें अभी गवर्नमेंट डिसाइड कर ले, स्मार्ट सिटी प्रोजेक्ट एंड दिस रिन्यूएबल टेक्नोलॉजी. इन दोनों को गवर्नमेंट डिसाइड करे और सोचे कि अब हमें ह्यूमन रिसोर्स डेवलप करना है इसके लिए, एंड गवर्नमेंट टेक्स इट ऑन वॉर स्टेप्स एंड डेवलप्स, trains the human resource. India has that type of human resource, that much of human resource that will be able to learn. We can become even supplier. You can understand हम energy supplier surplus बन सकते हैं. We can even export energy. India has so much of solar power potential. We can become supplier of so many products. If this is the case, सबको नौकरी मिलेगी या नहीं मिलेगी? सबके पास इनकम, स्टैंडर्ड्स ऑफ लिविंग बेटर हो जाएगा. व्हाट इज देन ऑप्टिमम पॉपुलेशन? उतने ही रिसोर्स बेस में क्या हम ऑप्टिमम पॉपुलेशन अचीव नहीं कर सकते? बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं. इट इज जस्ट अबाउट हैविंग अ विजन. इट इज जस्ट अबाउट हैविंग the willpower to achieve that vision. And the government is busy in different things, because this sector is reserved for certain people who will get profits from them. They would become the main supplier. You look into the history of West, innovations always came from the small and medium sectors, not from the large sectors. Always innovation की सबसे खास बात ये होती है, it is individual based. Never organizations don't do innovations. Individuals innovate because of their zeal, because of their willpower. And that is why you will find that in case of the West history, majority of innovations come from the small scale sector. वो बात अलग है कि उसको बाद में ज्यादा पैसा दे करके बड़ी कंपनियां खरीद लेती हैं, but they always come from the small scale sectors. So that is the case of technology. We are simply today classifying India as overpopulated country. But if we are able to develop the technology, India will soon become what? Optimum populated. It is all about the level of technological development. ठीक है. So that is the basic case of technology in this role of deciding which is optimum under and optimum populated. Can I say इसका technocentric view का सबसे best example is Ackermann's population resource region. It is the Ackermann's population resource region. Here it is the technology. Like take the case of Europe. Europe has higher density of population. Still we are classifying Europe as optimum populated. उसके पास resources भी low हैं. But still we are classifying it as optimum populated. Why we are classifying it? Because resource is not just function of size, it is function of technology also. So it has very high technology which is able to compensate, and thus Europe can supply services and can import the cheap resources. It has no problem in that. It can import iron ore or iron and steel and produce weapons, produce automobile, and can get huge amount of profit. So Europe has no problem because technology compensates for everything, and thus they are able to, despite this, they are able to have very high standards of living. They are optimum populated area. ठीक है? So that is the basic case of Europe, and that is the Ackermann. So Ackermann's idea is essentially what? It is essentially a technocentric view on population resource relationship. And very clearly already we know that technology is just one factor out of the three factors. Other factor is the factor of affluence. Factor of affluence. अब इसी factor of affluence का simple सा एक example लो कि हमारे फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर ने आरबीआई से पैसा लिया था अभी बीच में, ठीक है, कितने लाख करोड़, सुन के भी मुझे अजीब सा लगता है. पैसा लिया, उस पैसे का क्या किया गया? इट वॉज गिवन एज टैक्स ब्रेक टू आवर गरीब बेचारा कॉर्पोरेट हु आर सफरिंग द बर्डन ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम. बेचारे समझ सकते हो कि कितनी बुरी हालत थी उनकी कि इफ दे हैड टू बाय 5 जेट प्लेन्स दे वर ओनली एबल टू बाय 2. दैट वाज, इतनी गरीबी आ गई थी उनके. सो उनको टैक्स ब्रेक दिया गया. ठीक है. अभी क्या किया गया है? मनरेगा के एलोकेशन को कम कर दिया गया. टोटल रूरल एलोकेशन एक्चुअली हैज बीन रिड्यूस्ड. एंड यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड, मतलब आई रियली डोंट अंडरस्टैंड कि ये गवर्नमेंट करना क्या चाहता है. आर दे हेल बाउंड ऑन डिस्ट्रॉइंग इंडिया? बिकॉज दिस इज व्हाट दे आर डूइंग. बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली it is all function of the purchasing power. It is all function of demand. This budget should have recognized this problem and it should have given higher allocation in the social sector. It should have tried to provide more subsidies so that the people can have again that income. But what they did, they destroyed it. Now, अब rural में it is 100% sure that by next year the level of poverty will be higher. The standards of living would be lower. Can I say this is why? This is one of the basic problem is because certain people's greed becomes greater than the needs of other people. अंबानी और करोड़ रुपए कमा के करेगा क्या? वो करेगा क्या? He has to ultimately go up. वो पैसे लेके जाएगा तो है नहीं. But it is what it is. They have to earn more and more money. It is just there. They want to show that before they die they were the richest people or whatever. But this type of greed is destroying lives of other people. This money, अभी corporate के पास 1% of people own more than आई थिंक 4 times या 3 times कितना था the share, the money which is there with the 70% of Indians. This is the level of inequality. Their income, their assets are much more than your GDP, कितने times more than GDP of India. You can understand अगर वो money इधर आ जाए, can I say हम कितने सारे social service schemes start कर सकते हैं? So much employment can be given to the people. People don't have right now employment. They are willing to work for even very low wages. That is the case of affluence. Affluence का simple मतलब है, it is the factor of distribution of resources. Distribution of resources. I was talking about Africa. How much you are buying those chocolates for? जो chocolates हम खाते हैं, कितने की खाते हैं? मतलब डिपेंड करता है कि कौन सी चॉकलेट खा रहे हैं. बट आई नो दैट समटाइम्स आई हैव टू गिव चॉकलेट. आई हैव बॉट चॉकलेट्स इवन फॉर 1500. इतना बड़ा. ठीक है. सो आप समझ सकते हो कि राइट नाउ इफ यू लुक इनटू द केस ऑफ अफ्रीकन फार्मर्स, there was one article in the Economist on the situation of American farmers. It is, they are facing a very, very big crisis. The situation is very, very worse. So whom we are giving money? Money कहाँ पे जा रहा है? It is the intermediaries who are taking all those money. It is not reaching to them. So the intermediaries are taking the major share of the profit. So if there is very low living standard in Africa, can I say it is not the problem of resource availability or resource exploitation. It is more problem of distribution of resources. So when we are calculating the over, under and optimum population, हमने calculate करने के लिए क्या पैरामीटर निकाला? Standard of living. So you cannot determine standard of living just by saying that this is problem of resource or this is the problem of technology. It is none of that. They would be playing role, no doubt. But still, can we say that the world has enough resources to feed all the people? It has enough resources. It has enough resources that a person can have a decent standard of living. All the people on this earth can have a decent standard of living, provided the resources are distributed equitably. I am not using the word equally, they are distributed equitably. There should be equitable distribution of resources. People should get what is their basic rights. Somebody born, he should not be discriminated on the basis of land resource, on the basis of water resource. ये सबका, if you are born on earth, this is your right. किसी के बाप ने नहीं बनाई थी जमीन, ठीक है. पानी किसी ने नहीं बनाया. All these are given. वाटर की प्रॉब्लम क्यों? क्योंकि लोगों ने उसे पोल्यूट कर दिया है. Somebody born, उसने पोल्यूट नहीं किया. अभी जो आज बॉर्न हो रहा है उसने पोल्यूट नहीं किया. ये उसकी गलती नहीं है, ठीक है. So it is all about what? The factor of distribution. You have to correct the factor of distribution. Marx says, you see the problems, all the problems would be gone. And really, I am really fan of Kerala. Kerala has been able to do this so well, just by following a more community-oriented model. It is like this. But हमारा मॉडल कौन सा है? गुजरात मॉडल. अब देखो इंडिया में भी गुजरात मॉडल आ गया ना. ऐसा ही था गुजरात मॉडल शुरू से ही. जो वहां जाता था, जिसको पता था उसको पता था, गुजरात मॉडल यही था. it was autocracy, misinformation, hiding information, feeding corporates, having some symbols of affluence दिखाने के लिए, large inequality. This was actually गुजरात मॉडल. अब इंडिया में भी आ गया है, तो खुशी मनाओ. So that is basically the factor of over, under and optimum population. So India को भी divide कर सकते हैं, like Egyptian type is overpopulated, like UP, Bihar, West Bengal. These are what? Egyptian type. Brazilian type, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Telangana, Northeast, Himalayan states, all these are Brazilian type. Optimum populated, Punjab, Haryana, Gujarat, झूठ मूठ में रख दिया है, महाराष्ट्र, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, all of these are under this optimum populated. So Kerala, you know very well, overall development level is very high. However, this classification there are, ये fourth नहीं है, intra and inter-regional differences. For example, if you talk about Maharashtra, outside, if you go outside the Konkan region, you will be finding that it would become what? There are so many problems. It would become an underpopulated area. The Marathwada region, the Vidarbha region, there are so many problems. In Gujarat, again, outside Ahmedabad and Ahmedabad-Vadodara belt, which is there, the development is not up to the desirable level. It is very high inequality is found. Same thing in Karnataka, you will be finding that the Malnad region is what? It is underpopulated. Majority of population is concentrated in the Medan region of Karnataka. That is what we are saying. These concepts are dynamic and vary in time and space. Similarly, one area can become over, under and optimum populated depending upon the changes in the economy. Okay? So this is the basic concept of over, under and optimum population. कल हम इसको